Former tribal people, what's the craziest thing you witnessed back at home? I work at an IT firm, and one of my colleagues is this 7'2" guy from Mali named Yeba, with scars covering his entire body. His scars come from fights with wild animals while hunting, and the craziest thing he's told me was his escape story. He was just 13 when a white American man came to his village to spread the word of Jesus. This man was subsequently tied up, and it was decided he would be sacrificed to the gods. In Yeba's tribe, the ritual for human sacrifice was to have the tribe leader's son carry out the act to prepare him for manhood, and because Yeba's dad was the leader, Yeba was tasked with taking this man's life. He was brought into a tent with the tied-up man while the whole village waited outside, and he told me that even though he didn't know English, he understood that the man was begging for his life. Yeba started crying while telling this next part. He grabbed the hot blade and walked up to him, then closed his eyes and looked down at the ground and started slicing. He said he still remembers how horrible it felt, and how much the man screamed, and when Yeba finally stepped outside the tent covered in red, the village celebrated. Yeba was now a man, and as his very final step had to drink a cup of the man's red, he said he felt disgusting for what he did, and soon started losing sleep because of it. 1 year later at 14, he used a trick he learned from elders as a kid, and buried himself alive in sand, leaving just enough space around his nose for breath. Because he was the leader's son, a search party was started immediately. The men rode out in caravans to nearby towns with which they sometimes traded to search for Yeba, but of course had no luck. When nighttime fell and the men were back home and asleep, Yeba dug himself out of the sand. He then followed the tracks of the caravans across the desert for 35 miles until he reached a town. He lived on the streets of that town for a few months until a kind, lonely old woman took him in. They spoke a different language and couldn't communicate, but Yeba told me she was everything to him. He still keeps a picture of her in his wallet and says without her he doesn't know where he'd be.